So thank you so much, Colin, for joining us here at the Dwelling Show. I really appreciate your time. I know you're super busy, so just taking that time out and just chat with us today means a lot to us. I'm going to just basically tell the Dwell listeners about Colin pretty quickly. He's 32 years old. He's from Omaha, Nebraska. I know that city because one of the richest men in the world is from that city, Warren Buffett. So that was kind of cool. He's currently a project manager for an insurance company. He got his MBA. He's married to his beautiful wife for 4 years. They have a 2-year-old son, and a daughter is also due pretty soon, right? So
Yes,
that's
yes,
that's
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 correct.
awesome. He has about 25 units. Yeah, I need to emphasize that. Over 7 buildings. So that's awesome. Manages most of those, and his partner helps manage the rest. So, Colin, I know you can do a better job than I can. Tell us a little bit more about what you're doing and how that's going.
Hey, thanks a lot. Thanks for the great introduction and for having me on. Yeah, so I just closed on my first property 4 months ago in April. So, what kind of inspired me and got me going? I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I think a lot of other investors can relate. And kind of a light bulb went off. I have a good job. Um, but I really didn't see an end in sight. I saw the first 2 years of my child's life just kind of vanished. And I knew I wanted to find a different way so in which I could create some freedom for myself and for my wife. So I really just dove into it head first, started reading everything I possibly could. Millionaire real estate investor, Dave Lindell, multifamily millionaire. And it really just inspired me. And it's amazing to look back of when I initially started journaling in January and February to where I've gotten now that I actually have units 26 through 29 under contract. We'll be closing within the next couple of weeks. So it's been a great ride so far. A lot of work, but it's been excellent.
Wow. Thank you so much for that quick intro. So you basically had your life. Everything was going pretty okay. You came across this book and suddenly something happened. So I want our dwell listeners to kind of get into that zone with you. What was that thing, apart from the fact that, we could spend more time with our children. I know about that. But what else, right? What wasn't that book that kind of changed your perspective?
So what really sparked it, I remember it was January 1st. It was the last day my wife and I were on vacation. And, I kind of had that dreaded feeling going back to work the next day. And one of my friends, he had recommended forever to read Rich Dad Poor Dad. So, I picked it up and I was absolutely blown away. And my mind just shifted. I just started thinking, I have to go physically work for every dollar that I earn right now. And when Robert Kiyosaki started talking about purchasing assets instead of liabilities, the light bulb went off. I realized I had equity in my home that was just sitting there doing nothing when I could actually use it, capitalize on it, and then start bringing in additional income so that maybe these vacations weren't just going to happen twice a year and I wouldn't have the same dread. So it's really understanding the difference between an asset, a liability, and then also what an asset can do for you. It was that was the biggest light bulb moment for me.
It's fascinating you mentioned that, Colin, because when I did read Rich Dad Poor Dad too, it was that little chart, right, where you have the assets, the liabilities, and you have the income and the expense, right? You're like, oh my goodness, and you can see your job, right, goes through the income and right to the expenses, right?
Exactly.
Skips the assets. So I could totally relate to exactly what you just described. So I can totally relate. So you read the book, right? You're like, wow, okay, I need to go do something, right? I need to go do real estate. How was
Yes.
that journey from that epiphany of, I wanted to go invest to securing your first investment? What was that journey like?
So it felt like a very long time. It only took, maybe 4.5 months, but it felt like, I guess, forever. And I didn't think I would get there, just based on lots of the feedback. So I started reading everything I possibly could, as I said, found Bigger Pockets, started listening on there. Um, every day I made it a note to myself that I was going to take one actionable step forward. No matter what it was, I wasn't going to let a day pass without making one step forward, towards getting my first deal. And what I mean by that is I would reach out to a real estate agent. I would have lunch with them. I would talk to any colleagues about it that could maybe introduce me to somebody who knew somebody that was interested in real estate. And it's kind of one of those things that I think you really have to, when you want to jump into something, you really have to express yourself and you really have to be wanting it. So I was speaking to my wife, and she had me talk to her cousin, which had me talk to his friend. Well, eventually it turns around. I ended up talking to this gentleman who's now my partner, that at the time was managing 50 units. He was part owner, working a full-time job, had 2 children. And me and him just kind of hit it off. It's developed a really good relationship. And then through Bigger Pockets, an agent reached out to me, and he happened to send me a pocket listing of his. I brought along my partner, and we went from there. I asked him if he wanted to go 50-50 on it. And since then, it's just really snowballed.
Wow. I mean, there's a lot of content in there, Collin. I'm even trying to like just kind of break it down. So there's partnership, right? There's networking, right? I'm using one words right here. Partnership, networking, and deal making, right? So let's start with the first one, networking. How hard was that? You had to meet all these different stakeholders, try to engage them, let them know what you're doing. How was that like? That sounds like work, Collin. That sounds like a lot of effort.
You know, it's just finding the time. So rather than being in your car, listening to your favorite radio station, rather than taking a typical lunch break with some of the usual friends to go to, Wendy's to go grab a hamburger, I would take those times to research the people that I wanted to call, and focus my time around taking those calls with individuals. I wouldn't say it was work, and honestly, it was very rewarding. And, lots of the real estate agents I reached out to, they wanted people with track record. So I think that it was really helpful that I did come across a partner. But no, it was really, it was work, it was effort, but it wasn't terribly difficult. And I think what helped me get to a comfortable state was reading so much, constantly reading, constantly learning, so that when somebody asked you what's a cap rate, cash on cash return, that you actually had an answer and you were able to speak, although not from experience, you could speak on what your ideal would be. So I think that really helped, just being educated.
So wow, education, networking, partnership, then actually closing this deal. So before we jump to the actual first deal with your partner, what would you say to someone who listen to this podcast and thinking, well, I want to go do something similar to what Collin is doing? How do you select a partner? How do you go about that process? How was it like for you?
I've got to be the first to admit I was very lucky. This gentleman, after I reached out to him, he called me back, took me out to lunch, and we really sparked a relationship. But I think what helped is that I brought him a deal. He had the knowledge, he had the background, he had everything. But he also took the time to educate me before that as well. He took the time out of his nights. We'd spend, hours on the phone talking about real estate, talking about our goals. And I think just finding somebody that's aligned with what you want to do, what you want to be. And I think that was really helpful. As I said, I'll be the first to say that I got lucky in finding my partner. I still bounce questions off of him all the time. I probably sent him 20 to 30 text messages or emails every day when I was initially starting. And, he was nice enough. It maybe would take him a week, but he would go through those and he'd respond to them. And now, I mean, we're both providing so much value to each other. So
that's awesome.
That's awesome. As I said, find people with similar goals or to where you want to be and pursue them and ask how you can add value to them. Some of the first things I would do would be showing units for him, helping him out with any type of issues that he would have. That's something that I was happy to do because I just wanted to get into the business.
Right. And, it's really interesting. You said, you talk about luck, right? But I think I want to kind of highlight something. You said you sent him numerous texts before you actually closed on the first deal. So I think there's a little bit of preparation as well. And, luck where preparation meets hard work, right? So you did
Absolutely.
do some educating, you read all the books, and then when you found a partner, you were kind of already there. So just kind of to highlight that, that was really interesting that you mentioned that. So you were networking, clearly, you got a partner. Tell us about this first deal. How was it like? What are the numbers?
Okay, so I think I just want to take just a quick step back. One of the first things I did was talk to numerous banks and figure out how I was going to finance these deals. I read over and over that when you find a deal, you should probably be prepared to close on that, have your financing in order.
Right.
So I reached out to numerous local banks, bigger banks. Through recommendations, I landed on a couple different banks. And what I decided to do was pull out a line of credit, a HELOC from my home. So I then was pre-approved for a home equity line of credit that I could use to fund my down payments. And I decided I'd work through a commercial lender, as they would be a little bit quicker. They may not need appraisals on some of the buildings. So that's what gave me the confidence to know that if I put an offer on a deal, that I'd be able to close. So the first deal, though, it was a 3-unit property. It was definitely mismanaged. It was in probably one of the hotter areas of Omaha, in the Midtown area, an area that's been coming up with multiple changes, new restaurants, A-class condos being put up right down the street from there. All brick building, built for purpose. And, the rents at the time were only about, I think, $2,200 total. The offer price was $275. We were able to get it for $258, and we were able to raise the rents up to $32.50 a month. So in all, we purchased it at a 6.5 cap, but we've already increased it to over a 9 cap.
And was that the pocket listing from the person you met on Big Pockets?
That is correct.
Wow.
That is correct.
So this was 4 months ago. How's the property today?
Yeah, no. So it's about 13.5% cash on cash return. That was with 25% down. We did it as a 20-year AM, 7-year balloon, 4.75% interest rate. So as I said, that this one I would say is one of the lower ones in return, but we felt really, really comfortable with the area and the overall condition of the property. Also that the area has nearly no vacancy. I have not had any issues, and we still have room to raise the rents about another $350 total. So it's been a really good property, little issues. And as I said, it's just kind of steamrolled from there.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Collin. So you got this 3-unit all brick. I kind of picked that up, so that's important. The external structure, you created value, some value add there. So you said this is kind of running, but it looks like you were just kind of going because you got a second property, right? Because you've got 25 units in a pretty short, time span. What was that decision for you when you closed on a first deal? Pretty good deal. How did you make that decision to keep on going?
So during the time that we were under contract on our first deal, as I said, when I get into things, I just kind of jump full into it. And I started writing direct mail letters. I got on ListSource. I purchased a list. I broke it down into people that had owned their properties for over 7 years, multifamily owners, absentee owners, and I selected just a few different zip codes. I then went and combed through the actual listings, identified maybe 200 that I liked, and on the weekends, I would handwrite letters, and then I mailed them out. And I will tell you, the return on investment for doing that for a couple of weekends has been phenomenal. I am just closed on my 5th deal from 200 letters.
Okay, this is a lot of stuff. I've bought lists on ListSource before. I've done some direct mail from ListSource, so I know that website very well. So you said you filter for those that have been more than 7 years that have owned the property, and they're absentee owners, which means that they don't live in the same state usually, or maybe they're doing the same state, but not in that particular house. And then you just handwrite. Oh my goodness, that's a lot of work. Yes. How was that process? Where were you mentally to sit down and handwrite 200 letters. I've done 100, and I know it's painful. Tell us a little bit about that process, because this is really important.
Yes. So at that point, I hadn't closed any deals. So, and I had seen yellow letters in those campaigns, and I just couldn't bring myself to spending $350 if I wouldn't put in the effort just to write some of my own. I hadn't made any money from real estate. I'm like, you know what? I just need to put in the sweat equity. If it doesn't work, well, then I can say I at least tried it. And, you know, I just paid for the stamps and some of my time. So yes, it was somewhat of a painful process, but I'm not gonna lie, I had some writer's cramp and everything. But I tell you what, the response rates that I got were incredible. I found a couple deals that I did not want. I shared them with my partner, who's also a real estate agent. He was able to sell those, and I was able to get referral fees.
Wow.
As I said, I had purchased total 3 duplexes from that list. Also some vacant land as well, at a very good price. So I know that was a bit out of the norm, but for what I purchased it at, I've already had offers exceeding 3 times of what I've purchased. So
wow.
I would say it's well worth the effort. And anybody out there, don't get discouraged if people say the response rates aren't that good. But my whole mindset when I was writing these letters was, what type of letter, what type of marketing would I respond to? And I just use that. I will never respond to a postcard, anything that looks like junk mail. I just won't. It's just not in my interest, because I know it's somebody trying to sell me something. In this letter, I just introduced myself, who I was, what my goal was. I'm an investor looking to purchase your property, and please give me a call. Fairly simple, low pressure, and yeah, it worked out really well, and it gave me a lot of confidence.
Wow, that is phenomenal. I take my hat off to you for sure, and definitely congratulations on those deals, and it's well worth it. You deserve it for sure. So there's a lot going on, especially with the direct mail campaign. So could you tell us the process from when a seller got your direct mail to, do they call you? Do they email? What was that process like? Just for our listeners.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. So most of the responders were from phone calls, and it was interesting. So I get on the phone, I just introduced myself, and lots of people were very, very skeptical. They had seen these letters before, and so I just have to reassure them, tell them a little bit about myself, ask them some questions, and give them some reassurance that I wasn't out to be a scammer. I wasn't, that I was looking to purchase their property. But the first deal, the lady and I, we had agreed on a price, so we're pretty close to. So that night I sent out a letter of intent, which a letter of intent is not a legally binding contract. It's not like a purchase agreement, but it's just basically to show good faith. I also, the next day, got a pre-approval letter from my lender that had the address on there. So that also reassured them. Once again, I asked my partner if he wanted to come in on the deal, and he said absolutely. We met with my partner and I. We wrote up the contract there. We agreed on a price. We then did our inspection. So this is something that I found a lot of value in, is bringing in my own people to do inspections, whether they're acquaintances, other professionals. I'll bring in a plumber, electrical expert, somebody that understands HVAC. Always do a roofing inspection, always do a sewer scope, especially the items that you can't see and that can be very costly. If there's additional items, if I have any concerns about the structure, I may reach out to an engineering firm, as well as always doing a survey. So we went through that process, and then closed really successfully in about 35 days or so. So it was, I would say it was incredibly smooth. It was a very nice couple that I brought it from, and it was fully occupied at the time, which usually I am not a fan of, but it's worked out really great. Great tenants. We did increase their rents by about 18 to 20%, which they were fine with. We made some improvements, and Yeah, that was one of my best properties.
What were the numbers on that?
The numbers on that one, that was once again, that was about, we were purchasing it at around a 7.5 cap. It's now at a 9.5 cap, with 16% cash on cash returns. So once again, pretty decent. And when I'm factoring those numbers, so I do the management for these buildings, I put away 10% for management fees as well. So that's another way in which to, I guess, keep yourself honest, so that one day if you do need to give it over to a management company, that you're used to those expenses already. So we purchased the duplex for $154,000. Each side, 2 bed, 1 bath. Once again, in a really good area of Omaha, large backyard, off-street parking, newer ACs and furnace. Roof was in good condition. So,
so you guys didn't have to invest any of your capital. It was kind of just good to go.
Yeah, we've put maybe $2,000 into it, so not much, and that's all been generated from the cash flow of the property. So,
anyway, that's awesome. That's a fantastic deal. Right, that's a fantastic deal. So there's a lot going on here. With some of these deals that you're finding from the DM campaign, the direct mail campaign, are you kind of offering sellers some creative financing, seller financing? And if you are, what has been the reception like? Because people say that for, when they say, well, I can't really get involved in real estate because I don't have the money. So have you tried that option, and has it really worked?
Ola, I have not. I have offered that, and truthfully, going forward, that's how I would like to structure some of my deals, especially with the diminishing capital that I have now to use before I refinance. But no, I have not. As I said, I would like to get into that, to use some of the seller financing.
That's just something I thought was kind of interesting to get your perspective. So you're finding deals. Clearly, you have no problems with finding deals. You're doing a great job funding them because you're closing. What else for Collin? What's like 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? What does it look like for Collin?
So I just want to go and touch on another one of the deals, because I think it really leads into why partnerships are important, and it's important to offer something. So as I said, my partner, I offered these properties if he wanted some equity into them. Well, sure enough, a couple months ago, he brought 11 units to me. Solid brick building, beautiful, fully occupied, great shape, and yeah, we just closed on that with actually another partner, one of his friends. So I think it's really to point out that this really is a team sport, and that having him there has helped me dramatically, not only from a confidence perspective, but also bringing me a great deal that basically doubled my whole portfolio size in one deal. So I think that's important to touch on.
Well, now that you mentioned that, I'm like a kid in a candy store. I love multifamily. 11 unit, that's huge. So can you tell us a little bit more about that particular deal, how you found it? What was the going in cap, if there were any value add? How much was he, how much is he appraising for right now?
Yep. So he actually found it. He'd been working with the owner for about 2 years now. So he'd been trying to work this deal for about 2 years. He's also fairly persistent like I am, and looking for deals as well.
That always helps.
Yep, absolutely. So we ended up purchasing it for $478,000. It's 11 units. There's opportunity to put in another unit as well. All the units were beautifully remodeled. The roof was in good shape. Newer ACs, I believe, on 8 of them. 8 of the units, all separately metered. 8 units are 2 bed, 1 bath. The other 3 are 1 bed, 1 bath. And the rents were under market. They were between $550 and $600, and we're getting them up to about the $750 mark for the 2 bed, 1 bath, and then about $650 for the 1 bed, 1 bath.
Cool. That's interesting. I mean, that sounds like a really good deal. I'm just kind of comping that with some of the multifamily buildings here in Baltimore. So that's pretty good. Your price per door is pretty amazing. So that's awesome. And definitely when you put that 12th unit, that's even going to bring that price per unit down. So that's going to be a fantastic value add.
Yeah, I would say that day one, the cash on cash returns with the current rents that were in place were 17% cash on cash, and that was with 25% down. So
Yeah, that's pretty
overall,
impressive. Yes.
very strong. You know, we project it to be closer to 23 to 24 by next year or so. So once again, great returns, good area with a lot of growth. I would say though that it's definitely a C, maybe C plus class area. But yeah, overall, it's been great.
Wow. Congratulations again. I mean, you're just on fire. I mean, great job. Great job for sure. Before I go into the quick round, I just have to ask you one question. You've got a day job, dude. Like, how is this even possible? You got your wife, you got your son and your daughter coming. How are you doing this?
That's a good question. I have a patient wife that loves me, so thankfully. No, it really, I'm a firm believer. I start every morning at 5 a.m. I head to the gym, you know, but I take any time that I can to either educate myself or work. Every single lunch break this year has been used for work. After work on my drive home, I typically stop off, meet with people, meet at the properties. I'm not going to lie, it's a lot of work. There's been a lot of tough times, you know, the tenants for threatening lawyers. You know, there's always those issues, but it's really just taking it in stride, taking it one day at a time, and just envisioning the end goal. I'm a firm believer that I just continue to picture myself in 6 months from there, in a year, you know, with not only financial freedom, but being able to do something that I love full time. It's just something I think that every investor has to do at the beginning. You really have to prove the model, but you also need that income so you can get financing as well. So that's also pretty important.
Right. It's always interesting, you know, when folks talk about, you know, I really want to quit my job pretty quickly, but I think when you have that W-2, that does help the banks to give you, in fact, you know, better rates, better loans, you know, when you have that W-2 income. So thanks for bringing that up. So definitely now we're, you know, dwelling into the quick round. So this will be quick questions, quick answers. I would love to keep talking to you all day, but of course we just don't have that much time. So
Sounds good.
the number one question is, what makes Collin Schwartz unique? What has made you successful, and what makes you different from the next guy or the next girl?
That's a really good question. I think I'm okay with being different. I think I'm okay with going against the grain. You know, I can face adversity, and you know, I'm happy to put myself out there for the world to see. I think I think now we get so caught up in being PC, or just, you know, we have to work our 9 to 5 to retire in 30 years. And you're crazy if you want to get into real estate, you know, and get yourself into all this debt, or good leverage, I would put it. But yeah, no, it's just having the confidence to go out there, see the end goal, and yeah.
Yeah, you kind of, you know, not to kind of put words in your mouth, you did mention perseverance and being persistent. You know, that's something you obviously mentioned too, and clearly I can see. I mean, nobody I've met actually writes 200 handwritten direct mail. I mean, that is persistency. So I think that's also something I just wanted to add to that. Second question. Yeah, second question. What was the last book? I know you're an avid reader. So what was the last book that you read, and what did you learn from that book?
All right. So I usually read a couple books at a time. Tools of the Titans by Tim Ferriss. And it's really hard for me to quote one thing from that book, but I think the best thing that I can get from that book is that we all have specific skills, and we should work on our strengths and continue to thrive off of those strengths. And because in that book, Tim Ferriss really highlights some of the best people and what they're best at and how well they do those things. So it's kind of made me look back at myself and think, what is my strength and where should I keep pursuing?
Wow, thank you for sharing that. I never heard of that one. Anytime I hear Tim Ferriss, I think of the 4 Hour Work Week. So that's definitely something I want to check out too. So thanks for
Okay,
that.
yeah, definitely. Great book.
Awesome. So last question. What do you do for fun? I mean, it looks like you're working on lunch breaks, you're just reading, you're closing deals. What do you do for fun?
Honestly, real estate is fun. But I do CrossFit in the morning, which I love. I highly recommend it. But hanging out with my 2-year-old son and my wife, I absolutely love hanging out with my boy. We, go to the park, play. Anytime we get a chance, travel. Love British Columbia. Love just any vacation at all. So definitely travel when we can.
Awesome. So I'm a listener. I'm a dual listener. I'm listening to this show right now. I'm driving to work in my car. I'm like, I like this Collin guy. Where can the dual listeners connect with you? Where are you most active?
Yes, I would love to connect with anybody that likes to. I can give everyone my cell phone. It's 402-536-0580, or reach out to me on Bigger Pockets. I've been talking to quite a few individuals on there, setting up a lot of meetings, phone calls with individuals. And yeah, I'd like to talk to anybody, whether you haven't done a deal yet or if you've done hundreds of deals and are looking for partnerships as well. I'd love to speak to anyone. So please give me a call, reach out on Bigger Pockets.
Thank you so much, Collin. This has been a phenomenal show. I've learned so much myself. Now I'm hoping I can go write 200 direct mails and perhaps get a few deals. I'm learning a lot. So thank you so much. Have a lovely day.
Awesome. Thank you, Ola. You as well.
Whew, that was a good one, Collin.
Hey,
oh
thanks,
my
man.
goodness. Yeah, that was amazing.
Thank you.
Wow.
Nice.
I have a clock, like a timer. So I kept looking. I was like, oh, because it's meant to be like 25, 30 minutes.
Oh, that was long. Holy cow.
Yeah, it's like 36. Yeah.